name is Jamie Rue, and today I'm going to talk about There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. 1, it's so hot in my room, there's no AC. I had to turn everything off and close the windows because there's like traffic noises. So ignore the sweat pouring down my face. 2nd, I actually also just did a different video that's kind of more writing-based video about this book, the first 2 chapters of this book, so if you haven't seen that, maybe go watch it if you want. You don't have to, clearly, but if you're interested in writing and you want to know one of the flaws about this book, I go over it there, so I won't really be addressing it. For those of you that are into Stephanie Perkins and were worried about the fact that she had written a horror novel, fear not, because it is still Stephanie Perkins. There's just a bit of horror mixed in. So if you have read Anne and the French Kiss, Lola and the Boy Next Door, Island Happily Ever After, if you've read any of those books and you liked those, you will probably still like this. If you have never read Stephanie Perkins before, if you're a John Green fan, a Rainbow Rowell fan, a Jenny Han fan, just a contemporary author fan, you'll probably still like this. The horror element is not overwhelming. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. This book, it's a horror novel. I went into it not really knowing what it's about. I'm gonna save you that pain. It's about a girl named Makani, and she goes to school in like Nebraska, and this girl has just been murdered at her school, so everyone's on edge, and she's also pining after this dude who she hooked up with over the summer, and that's the premise of this book. I'm not really going to go into too much more of what it's about because I don't know how they describe it in the sleeve, actually. Overall, I liked this book. The thing that I talk about in the video I made before was that the opening is very misleading. I thought this book was about something totally different, and I was so much more excited for that, and I was kind of disappointed to find out that this was just basically a romance novel with horror thrown in. But once I readjusted myself to that worldview, I really liked this book. It was pretty gripping. It was funny at times, it was quirky, it was cute, it was very Stephanie Perkins overall. So if you like Stephanie Perkins, give it a shot. I don't see really a place where you go wrong, as long as you remember that the first chapter of this book is not what this book is about. I didn't know that. I was very angry about it. I'm still angry about it, but not as angry because I did end up liking the book. But I was so determined to hate it at first. But yes, this is a good book. And if you are in the mood for romance with a slight, like, edge, then go for it. Makani was vaguely annoying. Her friends didn't get enough screen time. I loved Makani's grandmother. She lives with her grandma. She doesn't live with her parents. And the love interest, Ollie, was cute. Overall, it was a solid Stephanie Perkins novel. Like, whatever you expect from Stephanie Perkins, that's what it was. If you don't want spoilers, I suggest you leave, because I don't really know what else to say about this without, like, spoiling stuff for you. I had such a problem with, like, the beginning of this book, which I'm not going to address too much here. Like I said, if you want to know my full feelings about the first 2 chapters of this book, go watch that video I made. But that pissed me off so much. All of the scenes where people died were so much more exciting than the rest of this book. Like, I understand that, like, this is a contemporary, basically, with some horror thrown in, but that's not how this book was presented to me. This book was presented to me as a horror. As a horror novel, I'm offended. I wanted some more, like, you know, and I got some towards the end, which is why I liked, like, the second half of this book much better than I liked the first half of this book, because the first half was mostly nothing with, like, 2 or 3 scenes sprinkled in, but, like, the end of this book was pretty intense. It took to, like, the middle of this book to get me to like it, which is a problem. It was a fast read, though, so it's okay. The way they treated Alex's death, I'm a little bit concerned that Stephanie Perkins is just not great with writing protagonists. There was almost no reflection about Alex's death. Alex is supposedly one of Makani's best friends, and she died, and you're not, like, hysterically crying, you're not, like, I mean, she was, like, crying. There was a reaction, it just wasn't. For me, if, like, my best friend died, that would be lacing every single thought I had for the next at least week, including if I was trying to either find that murderer or was being hunted by the murderer of my best friend. Like, she would be on the forefront of my mind. There was not enough introspection there. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of, I felt like I was watching a movie and I was imagining the things that she was feeling. There wasn't any indication that she was really feeling anything, which was a problem for me. Hi, I am editing this video currently, and please ignore the traffic sounds. There are so many of them. I realized that I totally forgot to address the fact that Stephanie Perkins handles diversity well in this book, both in Makani's ethnicity and with the fact that Darby is trans. I think that the ethnicity is handled a little bit better, but that's only because Makani got a lot more screen time, whatever, page time. I'm gonna say screen time. Darby and Alex were very background characters. I think I do mention that in the video at some point. But if they had more presence in the book, I think the fact that Darby is trans and how that affects him in the town would have been talked about more. But given just the nature of the way the book was written, where Makani, Ollie, and Makani's grandmother, the three big characters, I think the ethnic diversity is handled well, and I also think that the trans diversity is handled well. It's really hard, believe it or not, to write diverse characters just because there's so little exposure to them. It's either you focus too much on the fact that a person is a certain ethnicity, or you don't focus on it at all, and that's really hard to balance, and I think Stephanie Perkins did a pretty good job. That's something that I personally have problems with as an Asian person. Like, I don't know. I think the moments that Stephanie Perkins included with Makani and her ethnicity are good. Her being like, I hate when people ask me where I'm really from. I hate that too. I get that question all the time. I'm Korean, for those of you that actually care that much. South Korea, not North Korea. I get that question so often. Just little tip for anyone that's watching this video, about 99.99999% of the time, if you meet a Korean person, they're from South Korea. Don't ask them if they're from North Korea. They'll probably tell you if they're from North Korea or not, just because, like, safety issues, but probably just they're South Korean. Don't ask. If someone says they're Korean, assume South Korea. Don't ask them if they're from North Korea. It's a thing. It's a pet peeve of Korean people everywhere. Please don't ask me that question. That went on a really weird tangent and wasn't supposed to. But yeah, the diversity I thought was handled pretty well. It's just that Darby could have used a little bit more time probably, but given the fact that both he and Alex are very background characters, it was handled well. Both Alex and Darby needed more of a presence in the book as a whole. I would have cared a lot more about Alex's death or about Darby's, like, almost death if either of them had been more present besides just trying to warn Makani. Like, I needed more of a bonding anything between them, which I didn't get. Also, high-key, like, parts of this review are rushed because my roommate came in during this review, so sorry. Also, the fact that Ollie, like, fake died, can we stop having people fake dying? That's kind of a thing now. I'm doing that in my book, like my NaNoWriMo book. I'm regretting that decision now a little bit because it creates so much fake drama, and I'm kind of sick of fake drama, so I don't really know what I'm gonna do now. Maybe I won't have one of my main characters fake die, because it's annoying. It's, like, genuinely annoying, because I was devastated that Ollie was maybe going to actually be dead, but then he wasn't actually dead. Neither was Darby. Honestly, what if Ollie had died and Darby had lived, and, like, it was just, like, that would have been, like, such a haunting ending to this book, and it would have been really, really good. Makani's secret, not that big of a, like, it was clearly a big deal. Like, that's bad. What she did was bad, but it wasn't like she actively, like, murdered somebody. Like, she hacked someone's hair off, which is bad. Like, don't do that. But the way she was treating it, I thought it was going to be like she murdered someone. She actively caused permanent damage. She could have caused permanent damage. It's not like you actively tried to drown her. That would have been much worse. And also, if she had shown any aversion to alcohol in this book whatsoever, that also would have been a really nice factor. If she had, like, at some point been like, I don't drink or something like that, that would have been good, because I had no idea what the secret was. The secret was so out of left field. I knew there was a knife involved, and I knew there was a beach involved, and, like, that tells me nothing. That tells me literally nothing. So, I mean, some more foreshadowing there would have been nice. A lot of reveals came, like, way too late in this book. A lot of things, just, like, this book was pretty slow paced at the beginning, besides the building romance part and the fact that, like, people were being murdered. But in terms of reveals, in terms of actively I'm learning things, wasn't really happening. I just knew that something had happened in both of their pasts, and I didn't find out until the end, and it was pissing me off. The fact that Ollie was naked when David ran in and tried to kill Makani, that is kind of the worst. It was also hilarious. I'm also very sorry that Makani's grandmother saw Ollie naked. I got zero closure almost with Makani's parents, which is not great. I wanted a better form of resolution there, because Makani had mentioned how much she doesn't like her mom and / or dad, and then there's just almost no resolution there. You hear her mom at the end, but I'm not, like, I didn't have any emotional resolution from that. The same problem I had with Alex, where I had zero emotional resolution from Alex dying. This book, as much as I don't like when authors drag out the ending of books, this book needed like another chapter, I think, to wrap up. Like, it needed another mom scene, it needed a Darby and Makani mourning Alex scene, it needed a renewed like Ollie Makani scene, it needed something with the grandma. Like, it needed an extra chapter for resolution. I don't normally really say that. Normally I would be one to complain that the author was dragging out the end of the book and I was like annoyed. That's not what this is. I needed another chapter of this book to wrap everything up. I feel like there are loose ends, which is not a feeling I love having after spending a couple hours reading a book. Also, the fact that David was revealed to be the murderer like so early in the book was kind of unexpected. I don't know if I liked or hated. I don't know. I feel like in mysteries I don't read mysteries at all, so I don't actually know, but I feel like, wouldn't you reveal the murderer at the end? Because the end of this was now just a wild goose chase, and how were the police not catching him this entire time when he kept coming back to the same place? It doesn't make sense that this high schooler had so much skill in comparison to like trained policemen. It doesn't totally work. Also, this cover just, boring. Overall, I don't know. I really liked the book. It was a contemporary with bits of horror thrown in, and I wanted more of the thriller type stuff that I got at the end, because that's what I thought the whole book was going to be, but it was mostly, like, it was half contemporary romance and half horror, so like with that split, that's not the split I wanted. I wanted more of like a split like this, where this is the horror and this is the romance. Clearly not what happened. It wasn't a great sign that I liked those 3 or 4 like murder scenes more than I liked a lot of the rest of the book. Those 3 or 4 murder scenes are more along the lines of what I had signed up for when I picked this book up. It was like a standard Stephanie Perkins novel, but with horror. And if it had been sold to me that way, I probably would have liked it more. But overall, it was good. Stephanie Perkins, if you want to stay in horror, maybe dabble less in the romance next time and more in the horror, because that scene where that one kid gets his head cut into, yeah, that was gross. All of this was gross. All of the death scenes were kind of grotesque and terrifying, and also the worst. And I don't want to witness that ever, so I'm glad I don't. This was one of the worst reviews I've ever made. I am delirious because of the heat in this room. I feel like I'm gonna die, so I'm going to go so I can turn the fans back on and not pass out from heat stroke. All right, bye.